take a couple laps here with Team FOXY at the 2025 Ultimate 20 North American Championships. You'll see John Lee is on the helm, Tim Ponter is the trimmer, and Scott Queen up forward on the boat. They just got the 5-minute signal, which is good. They got a little bit of a wind shot here. I don't know that anybody was noting anything on the compass, but you kind of want to keep track of the numbers. Hopefully they took a wind shot a few minutes ago also, just to kind of get an idea. It's pretty calm, nice day. You know, easy to go sailing here. It's no lack of breeze, which is good. The line, there was 26 boats, I believe, at this regatta, so the line was a little bit long. There was a mid buoy right here, you'll see on the right-hand side for the smaller fleets the same day. Going past that, sailed down here to Leeward End in order to get the ping. They pulled the jib out, so obviously the line's long enough that they need to get down there in a pretty good hurry in order to get back to wherever they want to start. Hopefully they've been talking about a game plan. You know, if you go to some of these regattas, you know, the pin end will get really crowded, the boat end will get really crowded with people trying to ping. There is a little bit of an etiquette to it. You know, you'll see here, they don't have a whole lot of traffic. I don't know that a lot of people were pinging the lines here necessarily, only a handful. So come down here, you kind of slow the boat down a little bit. You go pretty close to head to wind here, right at the pin, and right when the bow gets to the pin, you hit the mark, ping, there you go. So they have a pretty good idea. Not really great to do it on port, you can, but it throws the offset off just a little bit, but not a big deal. Like I said, it will get crowded at a lot of regattas that you go to, and it will get really hard to get a good ping, but you just got to do your best. Sometimes you got to go to the leeward side of it, sometimes the other side. You'll have a boat in between. You just never know, but you got to be prepared for everything. It does make a huge difference having it, obviously, coming up to the start. So they still have the jib out. You know, usually with these boats, with the roller furlers and the small jibs, you know, J70s, Melvis 24s, boats like that, oftentimes you can kind of sit on having the jib rolled up for a while, and some people don't even get it out until maybe 10 or 20 seconds to the start. So depending on kind of where you are, where you want to line up. Like I said, the line was a little bit long, so that's good. Get full speed, get back up here where you think you want to start. They're going to end up with a kind of a midline, top third maybe of the starting line, start position. We'll notice a couple things after the start that I'll point out to you. So here we are, just kind of coming across on port. We got 26 down there. That's Mark Allen, a really good sailor. Okay. So right there, to slow down, Tim actually rolled the jib, which is good. It kind of separates a little bit of distance between him and the boat in front. Let them power on ahead. And you kind of slow down a little bit. Picked his spot here. He said, okay, you're going to go there. I'm going to go here. Set up the leeward of you. Both jib in. So now jib gets deployed on John's boat here. So now you got a couple things you got to remember is that you're going to have at least obviously the opportunity to get moving. However, anytime that jib is either pulling or flogging, it is pulling you down to leeward a little bit. So you can see here already the separation between windward and leeward between 26 and John. So he's already slid sideways just a little bit. Here comes Matt Rush and the boys on 03 there, coasting in, got the hook on him. So John's now kind of late. He's going to be in bad air for a little bit here. But he does the right thing, right? Pull in the main, try to get the boat moving forward and up. It will slide sideways if you don't have the jib to offset it too much. But now you got the water going over the foils, good. You know, now you can actually start climbing here. It's got some momentum, which is good. Other guys are fighting to make the start here. Keep your bow down and clear. And they're sailing. So now you can kind of notice here, with that momentum, they were able to power past Mark Allen and the boys on 26 there and keep the separation on the leeward boat 03, right? So now just kind of watch this for a little bit. John does a good job of playing the Traveler here, right? Up and down. So basically you want the bow to come down, drop the Traveler a little bit. You want the bow to come back up, pull the Traveler up a little bit. And look what he's doing already to the boats that were on his windward hip. So that's 26 right there, Mark Allen, just in his wake now. To the weather of him was 187, Travis Gregory and boys from Utah. But they're all kind of slipping down. John did a good job here of keeping his gap to weather here and keeping the boat up. He does have the newest sails of all 4 of those boats, I guess. So it obviously does make a difference here, getting off the line especially, right? So again, now you can see the boats in his wake are to leeward of him. 26 Mark and the guys there, they're actually in line almost with Matt Rush on 03, that next boat to leeward right there with the red numbers. They're almost in the gas of both boats at this point, looking for a way out. Obviously tacking is going to be pretty hard to do here. But John has kept his gap here on the leeward boat, which is good. The leeward end must have been pretty favored, because there you see a boat on port tack crossing them by quite a bit, a good 4 or 5 boat lengths maybe. Who knows if that was the pin boat or not, but certainly somebody that started to leeward of them and actually had a pretty good start. So again, makes a really big difference getting off that line with speed, momentum, and then being able to play the boat to stay as high as you can and as fast as you can, right? John's doing a great job of playing that Traveler. You see it moving around a lot. You'll hear it occasionally, clip out of the cleat. That's always a signal to the crew that puff's on, or we're trying to steer away. Maybe I'm going to hike a little bit harder if I hear that cleat get popped on the Traveler cleat. So again, nice lane here. He was able to use his momentum and a lot of really good boat speed here, powering over the guys to leeward, doing a good job keeping up with that other pack there on his leeward bow. Again, really short adjustments in that Traveler. Sometimes it's only 2 or 3 inches. Not really a big fan of going a foot at a time. However, sometimes it's needed. But really good job. It's just really anytime the boat wants to tip over, you want the bow down to go a little bit, just drop that Traveler real quick. Just ease kind of the pressure on the leech of the main, and just kind of let the bow steer away from the wind a little bit, power up, and then just kind of bring it right back. There you go in the tack. John always has a tendency to drop that Traveler a little bit too soon, so it's not actually helping steer the boat. So the big thing to note here, Traveler got dropped. He felt like it was way overpowered. He was actually just oversteering in the tack. So now that main sheet just went out like a foot. I'm guessing 16 inches, because what I did is I watched the blocks closest to the boom, and they lifted up off the cabin top almost 4 inches each. And so in order for them to do that 4-to-1 purchase had to have been released a lot. So like I said, probably over a foot of main sheet got eased. And now you can kind of see, look at the boom. See how the boom's kind of bouncing around? It's one thing to drop the Traveler and have the boom move, but if the boom is just bouncing around because there's not enough sheet tension, that's telling you something, right? That it's probably undersheeted. It'll take a while, but you'll end up noticing that he doesn't have nearly the point and the height and speed that he had on starboard tack getting away from the line. So that's 03 right there to leeward of him. You'll notice by the end of this leg, they're actually, they pull up all the way in front of him. So again, the boom went out and never really ever came back in. It only went out because the tack got oversteered a little bit, and so the bow got too far down away from the wind. The boat got way too loaded up, tipped over, kind of a sense of panic set in, and just big crash on the main sheet. And that allowed now the head stay to go soft and tip the boat over even more. So you'll notice on this leg, you'll kind of see the amount. Just watch the jib for a little while, and you'll see the amount that head stay is actually bouncing. The whole sail, for instance, the puff hits, you can actually see the head stay bounce and actually go to leeward. Again, the Traveler is really important. Obviously you saw there, John pulled the Traveler all the way up in order to put some heel on the boat, but he got a puff at the same time, right? And it didn't drop the Traveler soon enough. As soon as you feel the boat load up, that Traveler should be popped out, like I said, at least usually 3, 4, sometimes 6 inches at a time. We don't often sail with it above that foot combing that his feet are resting on, but you can at times, and when you're fully powered up. But as a rule of thumb, you kind of want to not have it too far above there, especially not for very long. Better to always kind of drop it just a hair and then maybe pull the main sheet in a little bit. again, those puffs hit kind of like that. You just want to just crack that thing loose and then pull it right back, right? Because all you're doing is releasing the tension on the leech for a second, the flap, if you will, like an airplane wing, right? Just let it, you know, off gas a little bit and then bring it right back. So that way you can start using it to your benefit again. The Ultimate 20 doesn't have a backstay, so you have to remember that you have to bend the mast with the main sheet tension. You can also do it with the shrouds, but once you're in a race, you can't adjust the shrouds anymore. So now it's paramount to have the right main sheet tension. Pull it in a little bit harder, you're going to bend the mast a little bit more and flatten everything out. Let the sheet out a little bit, and you're going to straighten the mast up and then power up a little bit more. These are all things you have to keep in mind, that these boats are that different than a boat with a backstay. Really good job here using the Traveler to keep a nice attitude on the boat. Again, you know, the main sheet and the Traveler have to work together. So yeah, we don't want to adjust the main sheet a lot, but you definitely have to get it in the right spot for the breeze you're in. So if you're all hiking like this, you want to have it on as much as you can stand without having it be too overpowered. Again, this whole leg would have been nicer to maybe have the main sheet in, I'm guessing probably 6 or 7 inches. Remember, it's a 4-to-1 purchase, so if you pull 4 inches, you're only pulling in truly an inch. But again, now you can see that boat on the right-hand side. It's going to have the red numbers on it. That will be Matt Rush and the boys on 03. That started not quite that far to leeward on the other tack, but like I said, John sailed this whole leg with the main sheet eased. Sure would have been nice to at least have that main sheet back in, which would have kept the head stay tighter and probably a little bit more point on the boat. So you'll notice on this leg, you'll kind of see the amount. Just watch the jib for a little while, and you'll see the amount that that head stay is actually bouncing. The whole sail, for instance, the puff hits, you can actually see the head stay bounce and actually go to leeward right there. See, so just kind of keep your eye on it for a little bit here. Again, you can notice the sag on the head stay, and it bounces around quite a bit. So good job coming in. You can see the mark now. 2 boats up to weather there. That was actually us in the lead on Mighty Mouse 21, followed by Brad Boston. We were well overstood and just kind of reaching down at the mark. He had no choice but to basically just live off our transom until we reached the mark. But again, here you can see John and crew tipped over there, released the Traveler, brought it right back, which is good. But still, having that main sheet out from that initial hit hasn't helped him this entire leg. And so now that boat there with the older sails, Matt Rush and 03, they've actually been able to sail up to his line. Even just a minute ago, the perspective on this hasn't changed, but where that boat was probably a minute ago in this leg was much further away. Now you can see John kind of falling down into him, and they're actually coming back up. Again, that boat had the older sails. Shouldn't be nearly out boat speeding John and crew here, now that you look at it. So yeah, Matt Rush and those boys, they were able to sail actually faster and bow up, surprisingly, because that main sheet was released and the boat just didn't have proper power set up to try to go upwind. Okay, so now the boats are all kind of overstood and kind of getting in line. So now's the time when you actually can pull the boom bang on and let the main sheet out. There you go, good job. Remember, it's paramount that we keep the boat with a good angle of heel. We don't want to necessarily flog the main, but keep the boat on its with the keel underneath. So there, the first two boats have rounded. That's the third boat there. So now here, John and crew are actually in fourth place. Great job. Great weather leg there. Release that main sheet, keep the boat attitude just right. Crossing behind right there actually is 26. That's Mark Allen and crew, so they were able to salvage a pretty good leg out of that after all. Here they are on the way to the offset mark. There it goes. So John turns down to set the kite. Mark Allen and the boys keep the bow up a little bit. It's going to pay off tremendously here in the second. Right? So not only that, but BJ Jones there behind with the blue and gray kite. They're going to end up rolling here. So John turned low, set, but the other boats kept their bows up, kept boat speed on, got the kites up, and have rolled them. Lesson learned, right? If you're close to people, just keep an eye on to see what they're doing, and you got to match. Especially if you don't have a plan B, which is jibing out soon. You can see here they're actually going to sail down this leg for quite a bit. But in the meantime, they've had a hard time getting going because of the dirty air. The two boats that have rolled them out of weather. Boat behind right there, JT, red, white, and blue. You can see he's kind of, JT likes to sail low, so he's going to kind of milk this. He doesn't have anybody up on his breeze, which is good. So he's able to sail whichever angle he'd like, whichever angle he feels fastest. John's doing the same. He's not worried about the bad air from the kite behind. The boys in front are pretty much lengthened out pretty far enough that their breeze won't affect him either. So now he's moving. It's hard to tell about the angle of heel here, but obviously, you know, downwind, especially when you're going fast, got to be as flat as possible. Scott moved in. Yep. John asked him to move out. Like I say, trying to keep the boat as flat as possible. The skipper can really feel it too, so especially when the boat heels over to weather a little bit, the tiller will get really light, right? And so all of a sudden you'll almost have like lead on. And so that's when he knows that you got to put a little bit more heat in the boat and try to get it to heel over, load the rudder up a little bit more, and be able to pull away. So that all blue kite down there, that was Matt Rush and the boys on 03. They've obviously sailed pretty low here off the initial bat. The two boats that sailed high went pretty fast. They're obviously in front right now at this point. Pretty good boat speed, good breeze. Weight placement looks all right. Until you're ripping, you really don't want to have the weight back in the cockpit. As long as you're still displacing like this, go ahead and keep that bow weight, that knuckle in, so you don't hear the gurgling off the transom if you can help it. So good boat speed. Good job there, Tim, John says. Gives him a little pat on the shoulder, say, okay, now we're catching them again. We're doing good here. So now they're able to utilize their boat speed a little bit. Stay forward here. BJ, that blue and gray kite on the right side of the screen. Still sailing downwind. Now you can see that red, white, and blue kite there. JT, they're able to sail really low there. Kind of keep their same position back. Definitely sailing lower. But you'll see here in a minute. Boats up here on their starboard forward quarter here. They're going to end up thinking about jibing, right? Because now we've gotten pretty far over on the starboard lay line here. You can see there's other boats down the course. The blue kite there, Matt Russian boys have been able to separate really low here. Perhaps maybe not with as much speed as these three up here. But you got to remember to play your own game. So here you can see the blue and white kite of Mark Allen. They go ahead and take the opportunity to jibe in front right there. Really clean jibe. Spinnaker never wrapped around the luff. Really good. Coming out. So now they're on port jibe, headed away. Keep in mind kind of where they are right now. Still behind the blue boat of Matt Rush, 03. So now John and crew are talking about jibing. Now that they've seen one person do it. Remember to always look upwind to figure out where the breeze is. There goes PJ. He obviously feels like going the other way. So really good. Nice jibe. The crew didn't get, but just in front of the headstay. So here we go. Good job, you guys. Aboard John's boat. Well done. Not quite a lot of roll, but at least the kite got across and filled quickly, which is good. So now BJ is on the aft starboard quarter. The blue kite. Matt and the boys just jibed in front right there. So their breeze should be pretty clear. Now we're going to see where the rest of the fleet is hanging out. Now we're on opposite jibes. We're going to start consolidating here quite a bit. Here the guys are able to sail pretty much where they want. They've actually worked down below that all blue kite you can just see in front of the mast right there. BJ's taking this opportunity with that blue and gray kite on the right side of the screen to looks like sail pretty low and not go back. It looks like they're at the same distance on the trees over there. However, you notice here the blue and white kite coming across on starboard. Now they're about a boat length behind actually. They lost a little bit somewhere over here. John and the crew have done a pretty good job, I think, of soaking low and with speed. Maybe that's why they've gotten down on the blue boat a little bit. So here's the red, white, and blue. All of a sudden, JT sailed this whole leg down here like that. Good job. Barely crossing by John. They said go ahead and cross. They didn't want him jibing on them. They obviously have been doing a pretty good job getting downwind. Happy with what they're doing. Now John decides to jibe. A little bit of a late kind of notice to the crew. Kite was a little bit slow getting around. Again, not a lot of roll on the boat. All things that we've talked about before. Definitely helps to have that nice roll. BJ comes in. Woo! He was right. That was close. Obviously wanted to get to that left-hand mark, so he took his opportunity right there to stay to the left of John here. You'll notice coming into the gates, that red, white, and blue kite to the right-hand side. Right now there's only one boat to the left, right? That was BJ. The boat just crossed behind him. So the kite's coming down. Still pretty far from the mark, looks like. John's going to have to give room, obviously, to JT here. And then another boat got inside of him. So now you're on the outside of the wheel of 3. Not great. So that's Mark Allen on the boat that did cross behind him. He was smart enough to know to stay to the right for that right-hand mark. So now John's had to round this mark outside the pinwheel. Not with a lot of speed. He does get the misfortune of Mark Allen and crew. They have a problem with their jib here and end up having to go on the foredeck to furl and unfurl. Perhaps suck the spinnaker sheets into it. I don't know, but unfortunately they go backwards here. John was able to at least keep his nose clean. JT was a little bit off the wind there for too long, away from the mark, so you can see them on the left side of the screen there. There goes Mark and the crew. Too bad they had a good race going there, but this definitely isn't helping him. Now back here on John's boat, you can see he's looking up at the sails, which is good. All right, now he grabbed the main sheet, but he didn't quite pull it in. He's pulling the Traveler up. So he must like apparently where the main sheet's at right now. So we'll see if he's able to kind of hold this lane with JT there on his leeward bow. I think he just noticed that he said it's not crashing, so he must be in a slight bit of a little header here. Perhaps you can kind of see the sun poking around the front of the head stay there. So he takes this opportunity to go ahead and tack. Again, loosens the Traveler into the tack. Not good. Now the boat's tipped over. Breeze isn't necessarily too much more because you can see JT out there on the left side of the screen standing up pretty straight. Big puff comes, Traveler goes down, John grabs the main sheet again, but no action. Okay, good. I'm glad he's living with it until you can't live with it anymore. That's the idea. Like I said, we don't want that boom jumping around even when the sail's loaded. Then it's obviously not loaded enough. You saw there, the boat got a little flat. What did John do? He cranked the Traveler up probably 6 or 8 inches. All of a sudden the boat tipped over, right? So that loaded it up, but it also turned the bow into the wind a little bit. So you definitely have to kind of monitor where you are with your jib tailtails also, right? You can't just pull the Traveler up to put heel on the boat if the boat's already getting too close to head to wind. You want the boat to heel over, but you also want the jib to be full. So you still want the bow down even though the boat might go flat, which means releasing the tension on the main sail. Let the jib take over, pull the bow down, and get you loaded up and the boat speeding away again. So again, you can see here, every time he pulls the Traveler up, the boat does seem to tip over quite a bit, which is okay. It's kind of what we're intending, but we have to monitor that with the head sail, right? We can't just do it to get the angle of heel on the boat. We have to do it in order to place that jib at the right spot into the wind. We got a little bit of fisheye here. Kind of a little bit harder to decipher where we are in terms of relativity to the other boats. There's JT on the left side of the screen. Looks like he's probably in pretty close to the same spot, maybe back a little bit. The other boat speed's probably pretty equal. The boat seems to be standing up pretty straight, maybe more so than John's boat, I don't know. So you can tell here it's getting windy again. Boat's starting to, pretty puffy, right? So the boat tips over every once in a while. Does a good job with the Traveler, trying to monitor all that, keep it in check. Now the Traveler's going all the way down. Okay, so the main sheet just went out, right? So the Traveler was all the way down. They weren't super overpowered, didn't seem like, but the main sheet did go out. Now the Traveler's just going to move. So what that did is that allowed the head stay to go a little bit softer than it has been. And I think the crew actually noted here that they're a little bit lower than everybody else around. Get a little bit of a look right there at the leech profile of the main. I think that adds a little bit of twist. So let's walk through this a little bit. We've released the main sheet a little bit because we felt like we were slightly overpowered. So what that did is incorporated twist in the main, allowed the rig to free up a little bit, allowed a little bit of helm to possibly come out of the boat. Okay. But it did, when it twists the mainsail, it actually flattens the mainsail because now the shape is not being held into its usual design parameters. Another thing is that the mast will ever so slightly straighten, which sometimes will power it up. However, that twist that we've done now kind of offset that, right? So the next thing you have to look at is the head stay. Did the head stay move? Did it go a little bit soft with the release of the main sheet? If it did, that means that the jib turns to leeward a little bit and rides more along the leech of the jib, which thereby compresses the gap or the slot between the jib and the main. So easing the main pushes the main outboard, The headstay sag allows the jib to rotate around onto the leech and get closer to center line, thereby closing the slot. So these are all things that you have to keep in mind when you're adjusting everything. So you see JT there on his port hip. Seems like he's probably kept his angle pretty well with John and the boys. And pan around here, you can see, again, there's a little bit of a distortion on the lens, but doing a good job keeping the attitude of the boat nice and level through the water. Make sure we're not disturbing the air over the sails too much or the water over the foils too much. Someone coming out of that right corner there. Looks like we're crossing ahead right now. Not sure who that is, but a little bit of chatter on the boat, which is good. Talking about the breeze, their course, where they want to be. That's all good stuff. Need good communications on board to make the best decisions. Again, you notice that boom's not jumping around like it was on that first leg, right? It's pretty steady. Other than moving it with the Traveler, it's not really bouncing, but it's not releasing the pressure on the leech and then loading it, releasing it and loading it. The leech pressure is pretty constant, which is great. That's where all the power is coming from, is the leech of the sail. One thing we've learned was using the carbon rig versus the aluminum rig. Obviously there's more aluminum rigs around, but what we did notice was how hard we started sheeting, and then we got the carbon rig, and all of a sudden the sheeting got even harder. It's just amazing how much the aluminum mass will kind of give up, if you will, versus the carbon mass, which just always wants to be in tension. Really amazing the difference in the sheet loads. That's a good picture right there. You can see the fleet well behind. You guys have obviously had a pretty good race going here. Rounded the weather mark in 4th. The leeward gate probably 6th or 7th, maybe 8th perhaps. So let's see where we are when we get up to the weather mark here. And there's something you can do when it's windier like this, is keep a little bit of a scallop in the jib. Just keep those windward tailtails just kind of pointed to the sky a little bit. Give up just a little bit in the jib, especially in flat water like we have here. The main's starting to flog a little bit, go inside out. So now is finally the time when you almost don't want to have as much main sheet tension. So now is when we finally get to the point where we pull the boom thing on. So I think Scott probably snugged it up there. And then now the main sheet can go out just ever so slightly to try to help power the main up and not let it flog. What happens with the aluminum mass is if you pull the main sheets too hard, they can get too flat and go inside out. And that's what we're trying to keep from happening. Decent tack right there. So now I believe that first boat coming across the transom should be 91, JT and crew. Kind of stayed there that entire time. Probably hasn't lost anything. So they got out to this right corner, finally tacked back. We're going to check back in with the fleet. So they go just up positive of his wake, tack over to the right. He's going to come back over here, follow the leader, see where everybody stands. boat coming across the transom there. So he's going to put in between JT and John. So you can sail there. So that we just passed the weather mark. There was a lot of port tack in that race. Real staggered race course. So it's paramount to keep the boat as flat as possible here. You see as the kite goes up, John pulls the tack out. Okay, so that was BJ that was immediately behind me. So we actually got that position back, which is good. Remember, BJ was the one that rounded up behind him to take that left-hand leeward gate. And they split, basically. So kind of right back where he started. Seems like a good set. Seems like the boat speeds up. That's good. Not much chaos here. U24 going by to weather there. I think this is the race that he gets in a lot of chaos up there at the weather mark. He's on port and there's going to be a whole bunch of U20 setting kites on starboard. So we're going pretty fast here. You can hear the hum in the boat. Not sure why, but the later boats with wedges on the keels for some reason hum a lot sooner. Our older boats with no wedges on the keels never really have ever had a problem with humming. One thing I've noticed is the boats with wedges do seem to hum quite a bit. We've separated here pretty good. That blue kite down to leeward there, that's the same Ohio boys, Matt Rush on 03. BJ's jibing there. Got a stern. Decent jibe. Not a lot of roll. Didn't seem like they came out with a whole lot of heat, but should still be in front of JT, looks like. The red, white, and blue kite back there. Oh, never mind. Apparently he had a jibe right back. He wasn't clear ahead. A little bit of a mistake. Something to keep in mind. You're looking up the course. You got to really be cognizant of who you're going to cross or who you think you're going to cross and not. And then have a game plan of whether or not, if you aren't, what are you going to do? So 2 jibes right there, probably not exactly what BJ wanted to do in hindsight. However, all he did was just step down, barely like half a rung on the ladder. But he didn't have an escape plan to go behind JT. So something to keep in mind on this last leeward leg coming into the finish, right? So definitely keeping an eye upwind and seeing which side of the race course you want to sail this leg on, which side has the most pressure, and then trying to figure out which end of the finish line you want to finish at, which is the most upwind portion of the finish line. And set yourself up to get to that position. So now you can see here, BJ had done 2 jibes already. And now he's almost right back in the same spot that he was to begin with. Yet he's made the 2 jibes. So he sailed extra distance. Blue kite to leeward, looks to be in pretty much the same area that it was at the beginning of the leg. JT, the red, white, and blue, like I said, they like to sail pretty low angles downwind. Same with the purple kite that's behind them. You can barely make out there. Mark Asplin and crew. They like to sail really low angles downwind. there again, the blue and gray kite. He's done, like I said, 2 jibes, and now he's dead astern again. He's right back where he started. The boat that he had to do 2 jibes in order to stay away from was that red, white, and blue kite down there, and they haven't jibed. They've stayed on the same jibe this entire time. He just had the tendency to sail higher and faster. Like I said, putting in the 2 jibes and being in the same spot now just means he sailed all the extra distance, but obviously with good speed. So now they're getting ready to jibe, looks like, back there, blue and gray. Yep. So there they go, nice jibe. Hopefully they can get a nice puff out of there and be able to cross the red, white, and blue, or at least now, there you go. Let them off the hook. So red, white, and blue now jibe to stay between them and the mark, which is a good train of thought. We'll see where we come out at the finish here. The all blue kite, they jibe now also. Again, they're to the right of those other boats in the fleet. So any kind of shift, perhaps, or if the boat would be favored, will be better off. So John and the crew sail even further off into this right-hand corner. Now they jibe. Nice late main jibe, which is good. Boat had nice heel over it, out of it, I should say. Probably a pretty good speed out. Remember, use your body weight to steer the boat downwind. You want to turn down a little bit more, sit out a little bit further. If you want to turn up a little bit more, sit in a little bit further. Always use the third person to kind of start the weight factor. Good job not dragging the tiller and the rudder through the water too much here, looks like. Let the boat do its work. Let the foils, stay. There's the purple kite just leaving the left side of the screen there on starboard jibe, coming back across. He just made up some distance, we'll see. There's the all blue just in front of Scott there, in front of the left side of the mast. They look to be in almost the same spot that they were earlier. BJ and crew with the blue and gray just over John's right shoulder there. Be in a pretty good spot. John is between the mark and them, which is a good advantage to have. You can see the committee boat just in the picture there on the right side of the screen. The pin was to the left side, so probably just under the clew of the spinnaker. I think I can almost see it right there. Got the midpoint of the boom. So here we go. Boats are jibing back now. So let's see how we act here. I think they're going to try to protect the right side or the committee boat. No? DJ says go ahead. Okay. John for some reason jibes the leeward in front of JT, however, he's definitely going to lose the boat. It just went above him. You can see the main sheet's not loaded up. The main's not pulling. Boat's just over flat right there. Sure enough, BJ had the speed to just milk it down and finish in front. I think maybe ended up with a 5th or 6th out of that race. Take a guess it. Good job. There's JT and crew behind, and then the purple kite of Mark Aspen. All right, hope this helped you guys.